Yes.
You mentioned about the 30-second or 60-second or different version of that. You advise to cover like a name and then what's been doing. Let's say a person that has done different kind of jobs, and let's say they're not only interested in marketing, for example. Let's say they like also supply chain, because in the past they've done those jobs and they realize that, I mean, I want to be in two different career paths because I feel comfortable with those areas. What's your advice to cover those in the, I mean, since it's too much, then you have to tell them what I've done, and it's too much and it's so diversified, so people can get lost. So people won't remember what kind of job you're looking for then, because in your 30-second or 60-second, you don't mention like what type of position I'm looking for or something. What's your...
Well, you can, certainly that should be part of your 30-second commercial is, here's what my name is and here's what I've been doing, here's what my role and responsibilities have included, here are some accomplishments, and here's what I'm looking to do. Now, if I'm in a situation where I have two career paths, and that's tough because, let's say it's your dentist. So you have no way of, I mean, I read a group for the short on of supply chain engineers, then you're fine. But if you're talking to somebody that you have no idea, I would try and incorporate both things, at least to a certain extent. You know, if you could say, if you could reference two job titles. So I've been the director of marketing for XYZ. I worked supply chain role most recently. So you've at least gotten a plug-in for marketing or supply chain. But the, you know, and y'all may know better than this, but at some point you're going to have to commit at the end of this 30-second commercial whether or not he can help you with the supply chain job or the marketing.
You know, I really hear what you're saying, because I took on, I'm representing another company, and I have my own company. And what I have been finding in this last month is very difficult for me to go out in a networking situation and talk about my company, and then, oh, by the way.
Right.
And I have come to the conclusion I am not going to represent the other company.
It's just
because
too hard.
I cannot go down two tracks.
Right.
It absolutely dilutes my company. And I'm going to have to work that out with the company that I was talking with. But I think if you're interviewing, then you need to go in very clean on who you're talking to and why, and go at what the interview calls for. And
Absolutely. At the interview stage, you need to have,
I mean,
100%.
let's say the
Commercial
Marketing Association, for example, the association in the area marketing, I know, but let's say working like this, which is very helpful, and a lot of people in a different background, we help each other. I cannot just say I want only a job in marketing, or I just want a job in supply chain. And a lot of groups like this are very popular. I mean, when you go into the public place, you just don't know what kind of area they're in and what kind of person they know. They can know a person in marketing, they can know a person in the supply chain. So, you know, that's kind of tricky.
well, this is different. In other words, here, it's good for us to know you've got two tracks that you're interested in going down, because from a networking standpoint, there may be people in this room that can give you access to either track. It's just that when you get on the track, you're on that track.
So you believe mix both? Like,
Well, I think it depends on the group. Here, it's very safe to talk about a dual career track. I think if I'm in a Chamber of Commerce, though, I'm probably going to select one and go at that one.
I think that if I'm at a Chamber of Commerce, kind of a general networking meeting, not sort of an open forum like this where we can talk about, well, you know, I'd love to be a potter, but I'd also be an HR person too. I mean, so, you know, having a general meeting, that's why I said I think I would write my 30-second commercial to get an initial plug in for, hi, my name is Elizabeth Brackett, and most recently I was the HR manager for the Employers Association. My focus is employee relations. I've also had experience with marketing. I was a marketing director in a previous life, and I'm looking for an opportunity to get back into marketing. But I mean, you will have to commit at the end, but at least you've planted the seed for, I think she said she did HR, or I think she said she was a marketing person at one point. So I don't think that there's a way to create a commercial that says, and I'm interested in marketing or supply chain. I think it dilutes the commercial.
You have to choose one at the end of the road.
So at the very least, I'd introduce myself as having these two areas of expertise, but you're gonna have to pull the trigger at the end for one of them. Yes?
Before you talked about, sometimes in interviewing, people ask you to talk about your weaknesses. You know, people typically talk about, well, I work too hard, I'm a perfectionist. Are there any good answers that you've heard on that?
Those are good.
Or you think they are?
Well, not necessarily those,
I mean, that's what everybody says, pretty much, right?
I mean, and I know it sounds cliche, but you do want to put an answer out there that demonstrates a weakness, but a weakness that you've learned from, a weakness that you've grown from, a weakness that you turned into a positive the next time it came around. So I do think I'm a perfectionist and I'm a workaholic are too cliche, and you can't get away with those anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can, but a good recruiter is going to push back and say, okay, skip the perfectionist and workaholic and go to tell me about a time where you really blew it. And you want to be able to explain to the person that, okay, you know, I'm prepared to tell you about a time that I really blew it. But let me tell you the amazing thing that came out of that. That's going to be the thing that's going to sell the person on you. I had a million years ago a client that I completely dropped the ball. We had a 1 o'clock meeting, and I took an extra day of vacation. I didn't look at my calendar. I was in Florida, and my mom said, let's stay an extra day. I said, great, yeah, sure, yeah. And I missed a meeting with a really important HR. I was the HR person for this team, and I missed the meeting. And I spent the next 2 years making it up to her. And at the end of the relationship, she was leaving the bank and I was saying goodbye, and she said, you were the greatest HR person I ever had. You were there for me night and day, 24/7. You made everything happen for me. Any other HR person that told me it can't be done, but you managed to stay up all night, get outside the box, and come up with an answer. And I said, well, Nancy, you know, based on our first meeting, I had no choice but to knock your socks off. She didn't even remember it. She didn't even remember that I had missed the meeting. But at the time, she didn't remember it. I mean, at the time, she knew I missed the meeting. But those are the type of answers that a recruiter wants to hear, is how did it end up being a success? Or how did you learn from that experience? Promise you, I've never, ever, ever done that again. So those are the good answers to those type of questions. And those are the answers that don't come rolling off your tongue. Those are the answers that take practice. Because what ends up happening is if you get asked that question unexpectedly and you haven't practiced, you start stammering and stuttering through it and perspiring in my case, and you can't come up with what you want to say, and so you end up talking for 4 or 5 minutes and saying nothing. And that's terrible. So having those answers practiced will help you give an appropriate answer to those questions. The other thing is I will tell you that I certainly have had candidates and myself have said to somebody, I've never been in that situation, can I have another question? I mean, that's one thing that's nice about behavioral interviewing, is they have, 5 or 6 questions based on each competency that they're looking for. So they're looking for leadership, they're looking for initiative, they're looking for team player, they're looking for detail-oriented. And you guys know what job you're interviewing for, so you should have some ideas about what competencies they're going to be asking you about. So think about what types of questions match those competencies. Have some examples prepared. Have some stories planned. Okay, so let me think of an example of when I really blew it. Okay, check. Let me think of an example where, I was a team player. Check. Let me think of an example of a time where I showed initiative and helped the team. Okay, check. You want to have those stories laid out, situation, task, action, results, but you want to have a list that you kind of keep mentally in your back pocket.